I hope you guys got some insight from my last video and you found it useful, or at least got some encouragement from what I was talking about last time. Today, I want to talk about some more actionable steps that the medical students out there can take that will help them increase their chances for matching and residency in 2023. I've had a couple conversations with two medical students this past week. I've lined up a few more conversations in the next few weeks to help medical students. There are a lot of people out there that are trying to help the people. There's a lot of individuals out there trying to help people in this certain situation where they didn't match or they're looking for their next step in the pathway for their career in medicine. Hopefully that you find all of our information collaborative and not really going against each other. There will be different bits and pieces of information about how people recommend going about the next few steps. But regardless, I hope you do find it useful. And if you do, please share it with someone else that might be in a similar situation. I wrote down a few things on topic here to keep things organized. And we'll just jump right in. The first thing I want to say is I think it's important that people take some time to reflect emotionally, mentally, etc. about what's happened in the past week for them. The emotions that you felt and everything that happened and how things played out, etc., etc. Just take that moment to reflect. And, it's okay to be upset. It's okay to be mad. We already know the system is broken. We already know this isn't the ideal way to do things. And in that week time frame, that's your time to complain about it. That's the time to read up all about it. That's the time to get in conversation with other individuals that might be in the same boat and complain, air out your grievances, if you will. Maybe you need to talk to a counselor, either someone at the school that can help you, at your medical school that can help you, or talk to a trained psychologist or a trained counselor for the same reason, because this is a very emotional time. And I think people downplay it a lot more than they should. And if you are really deeply upset about this, it's completely okay to find positive resources in your life to talk about it and wrap your head around it and get better coping skills with what's going on. So yeah, the number one thing I recommend in that first week is take that time to reflect. If you've already done your reflection and then kind of move on to rest. There's nothing you can do in 5 minutes today that's going to guarantee your spot for a residency next year. There's nothing that's going to guarantee your spot for a residency next year. But what you can do is take some time to rest, take some time for yourself. Enjoy life for as much as you can, for however long you can. Because the next step after that rest is you want to refocus your energy and time. Every year that we get outside the match of your original match date, the more difficult it is to match in the future. So I want you guys to realize that is a reality. And because it is a reality, you need to focus this year and dedicate more time than ever to sprucing up your application and sprucing up your ability to interview and connecting with people in the next year. So that comes down to the next point I have is kind of doing a self-assessment. Take the time, break down your ERAS application, look for the weak points. Some program directors will help you understand where your weak points were. Others might not be so friendly or available to help because of their busy schedules, or they might not be able to for other reasons. But you can always ask residents and fellows and your peers that match. And really what you're doing, you're not auditing them and what they did to succeed. What you're really doing is auditing yourself to understand where your deficiencies were or are. And there's multiple reasons for this. There's not just one. There's plenty of reasons. So that's really important. I just want people to keep that in mind. So as I'm talking about this auditing, it's like, how do you get comparison? How do you reach out, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that's where the key point of networking and getting yourself out there in the societies for your specific goal residency. Love it or hate it, social media is here, and it's a very powerful tool. I think it's a great tool to start connecting with the societies, at least at that level. You can, so I give PM&R, physical medicine rehabilitation, as an example, because that's what I did my residency in. You can use these, American Academy of Physical Medicine and Rehabilitation. You can use the American Academy of Physiatry. There's tons of them out there. But then also, if you're interested in sports medicine, you can get the Sports Medicine Society, and there's lots of societies out there. You can either just do general medicine, or you can do a certain niche in medicine, or something like Doctors Without Borders, if that's something that interests you. There's tons of creative ways, but the goal is to get involved in these societies, not only on the social media level, but see what events that they have going on, so then you can start connecting with other people in the field. The more and more you connect, the more opportunities will present themselves. More people are willing to help you out, especially if you go about it in a very collaborative and respectful way. The thing you want to avoid is being that type of person who texts and messages and is constantly berating other people and not respecting their own personal time and space. So, say that with a caveat, because I have had experiences in the past where some students have been a little bit overbearing with trying to get help and advice. So I just want to have everyone keep that in mind. Let's see what else I have written down here. During all these, during your networking and society networking, there's another concept of, what else can you do to get more clinical experience? So this comes up the age-old debate of internship versus research versus clinical externship. They'll all be beneficial for your application, but what you need to do is find out what's best for you. Maybe because you didn't have a lot of research, and that's you're going into a field that needs a lot of research or enjoys a lot of research, that might be something that's more worth your time. In others, it's lack of clinical experience and clinical background and patient care activities. So all these things can also contribute. So it might be worth your time to do more of those things. Now, it's great if you can find something that's a hybrid. For example, there's in the physical medicine rehabilitation, there's several places in the U.S. that will allow students that didn't match, or residents or international medical grads who didn't match, to do kind of an internship type program with them, where they'll get clinical experience and they'll also do research. And they have a very successful match rate because of how much research they pump out and how much clinical experience they get within that year. So that's an option to look for. I can't speak for every residency out there or every department or whatever, but there are creative ways out there to help increase your clinical experience as well as your clinical research. So I just want people to keep that in mind. And that's probably what a lot of people are looking for. That key factor there will help increase their odds into getting into residency. There are some other factors of, your board scores. I'm not sure if they're even looking at board scores right now as a number value. They did when I was going to residency, but I think they've moved to more of a pass-fail system. Or if they haven't, then they're working towards it possibly in the near future. Regardless, there's some things that you don't have great control over anymore. So you have to have good answers and good explanations of why that wasn't why that was a lacking part of your application in the 2022 cycle. And that'll be personal to every person, I guess. It won't be, widespread. You need to just think, again, that's where the auditing of your own ERAS application comes down to it. And that'll lead into the actual next point of, really uploading your personal statement. Make sure your personal statement is very, very good and very strong. Now, when I was in residency, my chief resident year, I read through a lot of students' personal statements. A lot of them are very generic. And you think you might have wrote a really cool one because of some story and this and that, but it probably is not as good as you think it is. And I'm sorry to say that after I've read through hundreds and hundreds of them. But at the same time, that is not going to be the determining factor of why you get into medical school or into residency. So keep that in mind. You want to be very good. You want to stand out a little bit, because the best personal statements that came across the table were like, hey, this student did this. That's really cool. I want to talk to them about that. And that made that student stick out in my mind more. Now, obviously, I didn't have any say in who got accepted into our residency, but we were able to give some positive feedback or negative feedback based off these personal experiences that we had to our program director. So another thing, I think people kind of don't think too much about is, our interpersonal skills and our emotional intelligence and how we interview or how we come across during these interviews. Some people will be very, very timid and shy and introverted, and they don't have a good time opening up, especially in new environments. So that can be very tough. But there's also the other end of the spectrum of people who are egotistical and cocky and arrogant and all that stuff. And, they think they're God's answer to medicine. You definitely don't want to be on that end of the spectrum, especially when you're trying to be cordial and accepting into getting into a residency program. You want to be the type of person that people want to be around. Now, this is a completely separate audit, because I think it takes a lot of time and skill and effort to develop these personal skills, and take some time and effort to educate yourself on, what is emotional intelligence and how can I improve it, but also how to communicate with other people. Dale Carnegie's famous book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, should be on higher up in your reading list. And it's not just to read to understand it. It's actually to read and actually implement these into your day-to-day lives. Another one that I find beneficial is Charisma on Command, who also have a course called Charisma University. I know it's a terrible name, but they actually do break down how to be more, improve your social awareness and how to communicate more effectively. And they have skills in leadership and storytelling and confidence. So all these things, so if nothing else, is going to really help your chance of getting into a residency, because you're a more personable individual and you've spent time on working on these things. I would really urge people to look into what this is, what that means. I think it's a thing that people don't realize that they might be lacking. I definitely was terrible with all this stuff in medical school. And thankfully I got into a residency program because I was doing and starting implementing these things and how I communicated with the residents. That reflected well on me to the program director at the time. So that kind of gave me a leg up at that junction. But I do think it's important because especially when you get into residency, and how you communicate with patients and all that stuff is really important. And it's just a good life skill to have, especially when you continue to grow and network and meet new people. And it's going to help you with the networking side. So all these things, they matter. They compound on top of each other. Another good book is Emotional Intelligence. That's a good book to read and look into and kind of understand where emotional intelligence can fall into your acquiring skill sets. The other thing is, you didn't succeed to get into a residency this year. So the next year, you're going to have to really explain and have good reasonings why you didn't get into a residency program. And whatever the reason might be, it's personal. It's not, bar none. But the big thing is, don't tell a program what you think they want to hear. Really give yourself that time to reflect and understand where your shortcomings were, and then explain to them what you did in the past year to get to the next step. And I think that's going to be show that emotional intelligence. That's going to show that you took the initiative to fix your faults and you're dedicated to your career in medicine. The other thing is finding unique ways to volunteer, network. Again, social media can put opportunities in front of you for volunteer work or for society meetings and all that stuff. It might just be a local one that's in your city or state. So it might be worth your time to go to and start connecting and start networking. Trying to read through some more of these. I think I've hit all the major points that I wanted to, at least. I wish the system wasn't how it is. I have my many gripes with it, as I know many of you do. But after that first week or so, it's like it's not going to do anyone any more good to continue to complain about it. Once you get in your residency position as an attending, then you can complain about it, because then you can put yourself in a system to change it. But right now, after you've taken your time to cope with it, you really need to refocus your energy. And I'm not saying don't communicate. You can communicate with your friends about all this stuff and what happened and how it affects you. But I think it's important that you not move on. That's not the right way to say it. But use that energy to focus into making yourself a more complete applicant, reaching out to people like myself and some of these other people online. You can find me on all the social media outlets. But yeah, reaching out and try to see other ways to help better your chances of getting into the match next year. Last note, I do want to say, I've talked to several med students. One that had an intern year last year and didn't have a residency program, and he did match this year. He did herald a lot of the advice that I gave him over the year, but he did a lot by himself, and I don't want to ever take that away, because he probably did more than my 5 to 15 minutes that I spent talking to him. And then I have a friend whose girlfriend did not match last year, and she absolutely busted her tail, networked like crazy, did research like crazy, and got clinical experience with externships and some unpaid positions, and she matched this year. And not only did she match, she was able to match into an advanced program because of all the clinical work that she had done. And mind you, she did have an intern year under her belt. She just didn't match into the program. And before I go, I said that was, I think it was the last point. Take step 3. If you have the opportunity and the means to do it, take step 3, get it out of the way. It's not a difficult test, and it's just going to put you stand out from other people. What it'll also do is we'll give the program less of a reason to say what's wrong with this applicant. It's out of the way. They don't have to worry about you passing the test during their intern year. You can focus that year on being the best intern you can, and then blossom into your career as a resident. So yeah, I hope that you guys found this useful. If you have questions, comments, please leave them in the comment section. Reach out to me on social media. I may give some more advice in the future. But in my hopes, I'm going to have some more conversations with people in the next few months that might be beneficial for you as applicants, but also just in general, because, this whole concept of, these are things I didn't learn in med school, and I wish I did. So hopefully going forward, I can just enlighten a lot of people of things that we didn't learn in medical school, and I wish I did. And we can all continue to educate one another and help each other out and be collaborative and, just make it better for the future generations. All right. Take care.